Carmela Corleone is, without a doubt, one of the most underrated characters in The Godfather. This is due to her limited screen time. However, understanding Carmela is essential to grasp the essence of the Corleone family, and what's truly at stake. That's why, in this video, we're going to explore the importance of this silent and powerful character, and how her death marks the final thread of Michael Corleone's soul. So don't go anywhere, because it's time to get to know her better. Before she was known as Carmela Corleone, she was just a young Italian immigrant trying to find her place in the world. It was in the narrow alleys of Little Italy that she met Vito Andolini, a quiet young man with an intense gaze, who carried more on his shoulders than his youth could justify. They both left Italy in search of promises but found only struggles and hardship. Even so, there was something comforting about being together, two foreigners trying to build a home in an unfamiliar land. Life was never easy for them. Carmela saw her husband lose his job because of a local mobster, humiliated by a system that offered no opportunity to men like him. Despite her worries, she didn't fall into despair. Instead, she prepared dinner with the little he could bring home. She knew that his silence carried a restrained fury, and her way of loving him was to respect his pain, trusting in his strength, and Vito didn't disappoint her. He accepted any job to put food on the table. He would come home dirty, exhausted, with calloused hands. But Carmela always welcomed him with the same calm look, the table set, and the children clean. She didn't just share the burden, she upheld it with the quiet dignity of someone who understands the weight of love. It was in that harsh but intimate daily life that an unexpected moment changed the course of their lives. One night, Clemenza, the friendly and talkative neighbor, came to Vito's window, because the police were about to arrive. With no time to explain, he tossed a heavy package through the Corleone's window. It was firearms. In Francis Ford Coppola's film, Carmela is shown silently watching as Vito hides the guns. But in the book, her reaction is more detailed. She feels fear, not just because of the immediate danger, but because of what that act might mean for the future. Carmela fears that Vito is crossing a line with no return, exchanging the path of honest work for something darker. Even so, she doesn't argue. She watches in silence, trying to understand whether this was just a passing favor or the beginning of something bigger. In that moment, Carmela realized the home they were building was about to change forever. From that day on, Vito didn't just protect a friend, he earned a new kind of respect in the neighborhood. A dangerous kind of respect, one that would demand increasingly difficult decisions. And even with a heavy heart, Carmela remained by his side. Her love, silent but steadfast, was her way of resisting the shadows that were closing in. As the years went by, Carmela saw her husband transform. Vito Corleone was no longer the man carrying sacks at the market. He was now respected, and, to many, feared. People bowed before him with reverence. Like so many Italians in Little Italy, Carmela understood that her husband had become something greater than an ordinary citizen. She never asked directly, never demanded explanations. There was a silent understanding between the two, shaped by the old customs of Sicily, where men settled their disputes with firmness, where power was taken with one's own hands. But behind the serenity, Carmela carried deep anxieties. She feared the constant disputes involving Vito's name. With every new conflict, with every lost ally, she knew there was a risk, that of losing the men she loved. When Vito was shot by his enemies and left between life and death, Carmela never left his side. She cared for him as she always had, in silence, with devotion. She cooked, kept the house in order, and, above all, she prayed. Later, she confessed to Kay that she prayed, but for his soul. She knew the path he had taken could lead him to hell, and, as a woman of faith, she begged for that not to happen. Still, she never abandoned him. Even as the world around them grew more dangerous, even when Vito's choices brought dark consequences, Carmela stood firm. Because deep down, she knew, behind the dawn, there was still a man of honor, trying to protect those he loved. Over time, her presence became increasingly essential within the Corleone household. Carmela was not a woman of many words, but her presence was felt in every corner. She was the heart of the family. With her children, her role went beyond that of a mother. She was a symbol of tradition and values. Everyone loved her, but it was with Sonny, the eldest and most impulsive son, that this respect was most evident. Santino had a hot temper, but a single firm word from Carmela was enough to silence him. In the first film, there's a subtle but powerful scene. During a heated dinner argument, Sonny raises his voice. The tension builds.
Don't you ever tell her to shut up.
But Carmela calmly says, "Santino." And just like that, as if he were a scolded boy, Sonny backs down. The anger is still there, but he lowers his head. He goes quiet. Because for him, his mother's word was still law. That obedience didn't come from fear, but from deep respect. Carmela represented the old generation, the one that upheld values, honor, and tradition. And even a man like Sonny, who feared neither bullets nor enemies, knew that before his mother, the right thing was to listen, respect, and obey. With Fredo and Connie, Carmela showed the same affectionate yet firm stance. She believed in family unity above all. Even when her children's actions dragged the Corleones into dangerous wars, Carmela maintained her role as the guardian of the home. She never scolded, but her eyes said everything, and speaking of her eyes, there's something special about them. Despite having few lines and appearances, her gaze is firm, at times cold and watchful, just like Michael's during his most calculating phase. Perhaps we can think that while Michael inherited Vito's strategic thinking and mastery of words, he also learned from Carmela how to read silences, to understand what isn't said, to observe before acting. Carmela is a woman of restrained gestures, but she speaks volumes through her eyes, and Michael becomes a master of that same style. This similarity is no coincidence. Carmela's apparent coldness may not be a lack of emotion, but rather a kind of emotional restraint inherited from traditional Sicilian culture, a necessary self-control to survive the storms within the family. Growing up around that, Michael may have absorbed not only his father's advice, but also his mother's silent, observant model. This suggests that Michael's coldness is not just a mask of power, but a deeply rooted trait shaped by family life. And he understood that sometimes, silence and a steady gaze speak louder than any shout. Before we get to her final moments, it's worth remembering a powerful scene where Carmela takes center stage. In the first film, during Connie's wedding, she sings C'è e stata quella luna, a traditional Italian song that, in that context, becomes something much greater. It's more than music. It's memory, roots, affection. Even with few lines throughout the trilogy, Carmela wins the audience over in that moment, with her warm, familiar presence, a clear contrast to the cold and violent world of the Corleones. As she sings, she transports us to a simpler, more human time. For a brief moment, there's no business, no revenge, no fear. Just culture, family, and the woman who holds it all together with her quiet gestures. That scene immortalizes Carmela not as a passive figure, but as the silent pillar of tradition. Still, despite these brief moments of joy, what follows is painful for the family. In the second film, Carmela already carries the weight of the years in her eyes. She's no longer the same woman from the celebrations. Her eyes, once warm, now seem distant. Perhaps from mourning Sonny, from Vito's absence, or from Michael's growing coldness. When Carmela dies, it's not just the mother that is lost. For Michael, it's like losing the last anchor that connected him to his own humanity. She was the only one who still looked at him with tenderness, without fear, without judgment. And now, even that was gone. Michael's grief is subtle but devastating. At the funeral, he sits alone, shrouded in shadows. The light barely touches his face. Connie approaches and asks him to forgive Fredo. But Michael remains silent. A silence that speaks louder than any reply. There, in that moment, we realize, with Carmela's death, the last flicker of light within Michael fades away. No more Vito. No more Sonny. No more Tom. No more Kay. And now, no more Mother. All that's left is him, and an empire built at the cost of his own soul. Carmela may seem like a secondary character, but her importance is immense. Her quiet death leaves a void that words can't fill. Discreet but essential, she's the woman who, even with just a few minutes on screen, became unforgettable. Well folks, that's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends to support our work. And what about you? What do you think of Carmela Corleone? Did you remember her from the films? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for everything, and see you next time.